What it do, Direct Nation? I'm back with my first guide for Suicide Squad. Big shout out to WB Games for sponsoring this video. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is of course the new third-person action shooter from Rocksteady, featuring an original story in the DC universe and set 5 years after the events of Batman Arkham Knight. The game lets you freely choose between Harley Quinn, Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, and King Shark as they take on an impossible mission to save Earth and kill the world's greatest DC superheroes, the Justice League. And one of the best ways for you to do that is with the squad's special abilities. So I'm going to break down the best skills for each character that you should focus on early that will help you feel like a hero. The way the progression system works is that every time you level up, you're awarded a talent point that you can use for one of 3 trees. The first one is for your weapons, the middle for defense, and the third for traversal. While all the squad has unique skills, there are some they have in common that you want to get as soon as possible. The main one is the Suicide Strike, which unlocks in tier 2 of the talent tree. This is a powerful single target attack that can be performed after you build up enough Suicide Strike resource. It triggers a really cool takedown animation and can do an insane amount of damage, so I try to save it for the more tricky or powerful enemies in the game, but they come with an additional unique perk depending on the character that makes using them in general useful. Like for Captain Boomerang, for example, it drops grenade ammo for all members of the squad, and your team will thank you for it because grenades are incredible in this game. Speaking of Captain Boomerang, he's a character I'm maining, so let's start with him. From the first gameplay trailer, I knew I needed to run with Boomer because he's a speedster and I support speed characters in every game. Thanks to his access to the Speed Force, Boomer has a really fun run and gun style that basically lets him teleport all over the map, helping you avoid danger and get the drop on enemies. So I built Captain Boomerang accordingly, a Speed Force user that makes life difficult for Brainiac's forces. Now, Boomer happens to have one of the best skills in the entire game, and it unlocks at tier 1. In the middle tree, you have the choice between High Tolerance, Give him the Bash, and King Hits. You should absolutely choose King Hits. This skill causes melee hits to put enemies into slow motion for 5 seconds, and the only downside is that you have to wait 2 seconds before using a melee attack again, which isn't a problem at all, especially if it's a brute enemy with a lot of health. Captain Boomerang's melee attack is also basically a ranged attack as well, since he's throwing his boomerang at the enemy, so you can perform this at a fairly safe distance, then close the gap and mow down the helpless enemy with one of your guns. Another skill I highly recommend for Boomer is Party Supplies. This skill causes melee hits to have a 50% chance to either drop grenade ammo or shield pickups, 2 of the most important resources to have in the entire game, because the shield keeps you alive and grenades unalive lots of enemies. The only downside here is that you now have to add another 2 seconds to your melee cooldown, making it 4 seconds if you're using King Hits, which I think is still worth it. However, if you want to go in a different direction on tier 2, going hunting is also really good. Melee hits cause enemies to take 50% more damage from your firearms for 10 seconds. Melee hits in this game are already strong because immediately after hitting an enemy with a melee attack, this triggers the juggle mechanic, which makes your firearm attacks do guarantee critical hits. So this skill will help you melt enemies much faster than normal. On his traversal tree, I recommend Flat Out. This increases your critical damage by 20% for 10 seconds after using the Speed Force Gauntlet. This is basically a free damage buff because you're going to be using the gauntlet all the time to speed around the battlefield. If you want to just run at super speed longer, you can try Hooning It, which gives you a 100% boost to your Speed Force sprint, but I found the damage buff to be much more useful, and I mainly use the Speed Force dash in combat anyway. Now for my second favorite character, King Shark. He's the brute of the squad, excelling in both melee and movement. I love Boomer's super speed, but King Shark's is a close second, and in some cases can be better because he can super jump into the air with almost no buildup. King Shark is the sort of character that takes a bit of time to realize his full potential, but when you do, you're going to fall in love. And one of the skills that helps you do that unlocks at tier 2, and that's Splash Zone. It causes every enemy within a 2-meter radius, which is 6 feet, to be affected by your melee attacks. This sets up a perfect playstyle for people who want to get up close and mix it up in the crowd instead of just shooting from a distance. You won't even notice the 50% reduced melee damage because King Shark has a lot of ways to increase his melee damage. Even in tier 1 with the skill Meat Cleaver, which gives you an insane 200% melee boost against enemies with less than 50% health. King Shark is basically a shield harvesting machine, allowing you to drop in on mobs of enemies and clear them out while constantly gaining and keeping your shield up. But if you ever get in trouble, you can easily escape by leaping and dashing away before anyone can stop you. That's why I also recommend Jump the Shark, which increases your damage while airborne by 20%. This applies to guns, grenades, and even your traversal attack, which allows you to crush mobs of enemies below you. Shark also has one of the best skills in the entire game, but this one unlocks at tier 5. Royal Resurrection gives you a 100% chance to cheat death and instantly regenerate all of your health and 25% of your shield. The only restriction on this is that you can only do it once every 2 minutes, which is barely any time at all. So now, instead of having to wait for your teammate to revive you or burn one of the limited revives you have before failing a mission, you can essentially just be immortal as long as you're not too reckless and have a good overall build. I highly recommend King Shark, especially if you're used to playing the tank role in RPGs. The next character we have is Deadshot, and he for sure lives up to his name. There is nothing particularly flashy about his abilities besides a jetpack being cool and his traversal attack, which just dumps an arsenal on your enemies' heads, but he is brutally, surgically effective at what he does, which is damage. Deadshot is probably the most powerful single target damage character in the game, picking enemies off left and right with a sniper or assault rifle, which is why I suggest focusing on doing as many critical hits as possible while reducing damage taken, which makes his first talent tree pretty easy. Hollow Point increases critical hit damage by 15%, Assault Rifle Specialist increases critical hit damage with that weapon by 20%, Ultra Impact in tier 4 increases your crit chance by 20%, and Eye of the Sniper in tier 5 gives you straight up 50% more critical hit damage no matter what gun you're using. His Suicide Strike further increases your critical chance on all nearby enemies. His jetpack makes all this more deadly because you can fly around the battlefield and create perfect vantage points whenever you want to catch enemies off guard, which pairs great with the tier 1 skill on the traversal tree, Air Reach. Every 15 combo increases your critical chance by 5% while using that jetpack, and every 10 seconds you spend in the air generates an additional combo. Combo essentially goes up normally when you successfully take out enemies and avoid getting hit, with higher combo counts giving you more powerful perks. Spending time in the air will tempt you to use active heat sinks in tier 2, which decreases the jetpack's buildup rate by 50%. The downside of the jetpack is that it builds up heat, so you have to cool it down, limiting how long you can stay in the air. But I think refuel is a much better use of your skill point here. You can reduce the heat buildup with other skills. Refuel straight up allows you to get your traversal attack back 50% faster for no cost, which is actually just insane, especially when you combine it with the tier 5 skill Flame Out, which generates 5 combo if you hit 5 or more enemies with your traversal attack. Deadshot might require you to practice aiming a little more, but he will absolutely reward you for investing in him with extremely satisfying destruction. Last but not least is Harley Quinn. Similar to her ex, Harley loves explosions. She's also extremely agile, rewarding you for cartwheeling and making good use of Batman's drone and grapple hook to move around the battlefield. If you like getting up close and personal and King Shark wasn't for you, I suggest giving Harley Quinn a try because she can do crazy damage from in close, whether it's with that signature baseball bat or grenades. Harley really loves grenades, which is great because, as I mentioned, they're incredible in this game. So I suggest using Harley's talent trees to take advantage of her powerful melee and explosion fixation. Bigger Bang is a tier 2 skill that increases the radius of your grenade explosion by 20% while increasing your overall grenade ammo capacity by 1. Home Run Hitter is available at tier 1 and gives you an insane 200% increase in your melee attack damage, with the only drawback being that you have a 2-second cooldown, which works just fine. Bat drone away and crack the enemy in the face. Speaking of the drone, it's very fun to swing from it while shooting enemies, and it lets you get some distance. So I recommend using Trapeze Artist in tier 2 to give you 20% more damage while you do it. Alternatively, you can go with On the Hop since you're a bit vulnerable in this position, so that 20% reduction in damage comes in handy and works whether you're using the drone or not, as long as you're in the air. Head Spinner is also a great choice. Her traversal attack uses Batman's grapple to fling herself at one or more enemies and dive bomb them, and this makes that attack 50% stronger. The other Harley skill I suggest you grind for is the tier 5 Cherry Bomb. This has a 25% chance to spawn another live grenade every time an enemy is hit by one of your grenades. With Harley, you can have potentially 4 grenades on you, dump them all, and trigger another 2 for free. You can just imagine how crazy this can get, making Harley Quinn a great option if you need to deal with crowds of enemies. These are simply suggestions to get you started. The great thing about Suicide Squad is the ridiculous variety of gear, perks, and options to customize. The skills you choose will change to better suit different playstyles that you uncover. One great piece of gear can make a skill you thought wouldn't be useful suddenly extremely powerful, so just keep that in mind as you progress through the game. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League launched worldwide on February 2nd, 2024 for the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and PC, with early access granted for those who got the Deluxe Edition starting on January 30th, which also rewards every character with Justice League outfits, 3 Black Mask Notorious weapons, and more. Thank you once again to WB Games for sponsoring this video.